I'm very passionate about the topic of burnout, or just talking about burnout in general, because it's something that has happened to me so many times. I feel like I could give a TED talk about burnout at this point, but don't worry, you're not signing up for a TED talk. I just want to share with you my top tips when it comes to identifying burnout, how to know if you have gotten to a point of no return, and what you can start to do to go back to a place of feeling healthy, feeling well, feeling happy, and just not feeling burnt out. Because believe you me, it's one of the worst feelings in the world. If you have experienced it, you know this already. Now, when it comes to burnout is not only mental but also physical exhaustion, where your work or whatever it is that you're doing just drives you to a place where you're mentally exhausted. You find it even difficult to think sometimes, even the most basic of tasks that would be like a no-brainer for you, and now it just feels like the most difficult thing. Like my very first burnout was when I was still a software developer, and this was one that just kind of drove me to the edge, where simple things that I would just be able to open up my laptop and just decode in like 2-3 minutes, and then I swear I would sit down there for like hours just staring blankly at the screen. And it just felt terrible, because you know yourself, you know that you're able to do this thing, but for some reason, one reason or another, you just find that you are not able to work. Now, some of the signs of burnout, like I've already mentioned before: mental exhaustion. And I'm not just talking about being tired, because there's a difference between being tired. Just because you're tired doesn't mean you're burnt out. There is mental exhaustion, where it literally feels like your brain is tired, like your brain is exhausted. You cannot get your brain to think, you cannot get your brain to perform even the most basic of tasks. There's also physical exhaustion, because it's not just about being exhausted mentally. Even physically, you find yourself, you're questioning, am I just lazy? What's going on with me? I'm struggling to even like pick myself up out of bed. Another thing with burnout is that sometimes it can be borderline depression, and I mean this in all seriousness, where you just start to get those feelings of loneliness. You start to get those feelings of, what is even the purpose of my work? What am I doing all of this for? Am I just wasting my time? Am I just wasting my life? All of those questions that you begin to ask yourself. That's kind of like borderline depression. Now, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to go into the area of depression, but I'm just going to talk about what I know, and that is burnout. So these are some of the signs and symptoms that you can begin to look out for to say, am I actually burnout? Sometimes burnout can be confused with just being tired. Sometimes burnout can be confused with maybe you're actually just very, very exhausted and you need to sleep and you need to rest. But if you're doing all these things, to be honest, sleep is not something that helps to burnout. Another thing is, just taking a break. A lot of people think that, when you're burnt out, you just take a break and you come back and you're feeling all good and ready to go. It's not as easy as that, because sometimes even taking a break doesn't quite give the results that you want to. So now that we've talked about how to identify if you're actually burnt out, let's talk about what you can begin to do if you are burnt out, if you are on the road to burnout, and how to just retrace yourself back to health, wellness, and happiness. The very first thing that you want to do once you identify that you are burnt out, or that you are on the road to burnout, is to actually accept that you are burnt out. You need to come to terms with the fact that this is not something that sleeping is going to solve. And if this is something that your boss or someone else needs to also come to terms with, you need to talk about it. I think not enough people talk about burnout and just how devastating it can be, and that even worsens your situation. So the very first thing is, let's accept that there is a problem and we need to fix that problem. The second thing that I definitely advise, and this is something that not a lot of people talk about, and I don't know why, is to get support. A lot of times when you read about burnout, they're giving you all this advice about what you can do. And while yes, you need to take responsibility for what is going on, it is also very helpful to get support. There are people that are trained in, being able to help you through burnout. And even if you don't want to go to that extreme, it can be also as simple as getting a mentor or getting a guide or getting a coach, just someone that actually has knowledge about burnout and is able to support you through that process. The third thing, and this is also something that I highly, highly recommend, is to cut back. Now, a lot of times, I'm not saying all the time, but a lot of times burnout comes as a result of too much stuff. You have just pushed yourself to an unhealthy limit, both physically and mentally. I'm not even going to get into why you are doing that because that's more of a mindset thing. But let's focus on the fact that a lot of times burnout comes as a result of too much work. You are not, it's like too much is coming in and not enough is going out. You're putting too much work on yourself without eating enough, without sleeping enough, without giving yourself the proper rest. It's like add more work, add more, and you are not, being able to rest enough and rejuvenate that energy. So it's like, imagine a battery, right? It's like you've drained, or a fuel tank. It's like you've drained the tank. You've gotten to a point where even there's no reserve. It's like everything is gone and now you're empty. So that's basically what burnout is, or like an analogy to explain how it kind of feels like. So what you want to do is to reduce as much as possible. If it's not, a lot of times I don't advise to just cut off completely. A lot of people would advise, when you're burnt out, just cut off from now. You may find it helpful to maybe take a break from work or whatever. But actually, studies show that when you're burnt out, just cutting off every single thing is not the best way to help yourself. It's not to say that you shouldn't do any work at all. It just means that you should slowly start to pace yourself back to reality. So cut off as much as you can. If you're someone that used to handle 10 responsibilities, can you reduce that to 1 or 2? I know that seems extreme, but a lot of times that is exactly what you need to be able to build yourself back to where you were before. And the fourth thing, which I think again is literally the most important, is to practice self-care. Now, self-care means a lot of things to a lot of people. To some people, self-care is just sleeping, and I totally relate with that. But you need to identify, or you need to find what self-care means to you. This may mean that maybe you need to take some time off work and just travel. This may mean that, maybe every single day after work, there's like a ritual or something that you need to do to like feel a little bit better about yourself. Some people love going to the gym, as it really helps to clear their mental and physical energy and just help them boost that energy. So you need to identify what self-care means to you and start doing more of that. Now, the final note I just want to mention here is that burnout is not a one-day thing. It's not a 1 month thing. Unfortunately, for some people, it's not even a 1 year thing. A lot of people are so extremely burnt out that it may take years just for them to get back to themselves. And this is why you don't even try it. Like, don't even wait until you get to the point of no return. Once you start to notice that you're beginning to get burnt out, start cutting back, start practicing more self-care, start talking to, find a mentor, find some kind of support that can help you. Because to be honest, it's one of those things that it's better you hear about it. It's like, oh yeah, I heard that people used to be burnt out, rather than you actually experiencing it and having to find your way back. The truth is that you just have to give yourself time. We're all human beings, and our nature naturally is always to add on more. It's like, I can do this. Mentally, you're telling yourself, oh, I'm a strong person, I'm productive, I want to be. It's like what I want to be versus what I truly am. And at the end of the day, a lot of times we forget that we are human, and as much as you are this productive person, as much as you are this ambitious person, you are still a human being, and it is very, very important to nourish not just mentally but physically as well. Please go to sleep, please eat well, please try your best to be healthy. It's not a bad thing to imagine, a healthier version of yourself. Let me know if you found these tips helpful. Let me know if you feel like you're on the road to burnout. If this is something that you have experienced in the past, how did it work out for you? Do you feel like you're now in a place where you are free from burnout, if I were to put it that way? Or what are some steps that you have taken to find your way back to recovery? Let me know in the comments.